Now, although most of us will look back on 2020, the year of lockdowns, with few fond memories, as we've heard on this programme on many occasions, some good things have come out of that momentous year, and today I have another example. It's a children's book called Aloysius the Ram at Chateau de LaLande, the product of the fertile imagination of Warburton-based author and publisher Jo Rothwell. Jo, good of you to join us.
Nice to be on, Roger. Thank you.
It's good of you to spare time. Now, look, before we talk about Aloysius, I'd like to find out a little about you and your company, Rothwell Publishing, which I believe was established in, 2004?
Yes, it was. It was, gosh, that seems such a long time ago now. 16 books later, we've still going. So, yes, it's been exciting to write books for children.
Why children's books? Why have you specialised in those sort of books?
Look, I don't know whether it's my inner child that just keeps continuing on into my 50s, but I don't know. I just have the knack. I think when I was home with my own son, I used my imagination quite a lot, and we used to make up stories. Years ago, I used to be a governess on a cattle station in the Northern Territory, and I used to teach children through the School of the Air. And a lot of the times on the station, you didn't have the resources you had, obviously today online, but you didn't have actual books as well. So a lot of the times it was making up a lot of stories. So I think from there I just started writing, and it just continued.
I think maybe some of our listeners will be familiar with it's a series, One Yelpy Kelpie.
Yes. Look, we try to do all the books that we do, well, most of the books we do, we try to have an Australian theme. A lot of the books are geographically themed. We started off doing a series, the adventure series. So we did my Phillip Island adventure, my Great Ocean Road adventure, my Melbourne adventure, Mornington Peninsula, Sydney. We sort of did those adventures, and we actually honed in on particular destinations. And I think it's like anyone, when you identify with places, you get quite excited about seeing destinations that you've been to, and children are just the same. And we discovered that they love actually looking at places, particularly that they're familiar with. And from that, we continued the Australian theme and changed it to the Kelpie. So the Kelpie being quite an iconic working dog. We had a black and tan Kelpie for many years. She lived to about 18, a marvellous dog. And so, yes, we switched it to the One Yelpy Kelpie. And from there, I've written a few more books on her, and just finished the last one up in the Great Western Plains, Dubbo area. So she gets around.
Okay, let's now focus on the focal point of this interview. That is, apart from yourself, of course, and that is Aloysius, a rambunctious and mischievous ram known for creating chaos. He's a product of last year's lockdown and was inspired by a television series that our listeners may be familiar with, Escape to the Chateau, DYI. Jo, you're the storyteller, so tell me, please, the story behind Aloysius.
Well, I think it was just, like most people in the first stages of lockdown, I did find myself validating some spare time to binge on various programs. And I love the program Escape to the Chateau in the DIY version, and it's about English people going to France and finding chateaux and renovating and whatnot. And one of the chateaux was Stephanie Jarvis, the owner, has Chateau de LaLande, and she's created a YouTube channel called Chateau Diaries. And I'm not quite sure how I locked into that, but I did, and I just started binge watching this. And it's not so much on renovating; it's just their life at the chateau and daily lives. And part of the characters involved in her daily life is a flock of sheep. And I think they've got different names such as Clarice and Baldric, and of course the ram being Aloysius. And each time he was featured on her channel, he was headbutting someone or creating some sort of mischief. And I don't know what happens when I write a story, but I just find inspiration through all sorts of means, and it just pops up. And once it enters my head, I find it difficult to let it go until I've actually put it down in writing, and then I turn it into rhyme and make it into a hopefully enjoyable children's book. And so that's what I did. And then I sent it to Stephanie in France, and she read it on her YouTube channel. And from there, it got a great reaction. So I decided, well, we might add the illustrations and turn it into an actual book. And they've collaborated with me, and they're loving it, and we're donating the proceeds to charity. So, so it's worked out really well.
So Aloysius is certainly not a figment of your imagination. He really exists.
No. Yes, he does. And I probably, to be honest, a lot of people have difficulty with the pronunciation of the name. So had it not been called Aloysius, I probably would have called it something else. So.
Indeed, I have to look at the word every time and try not to look at it actually, because it's easier to pronounce when you don't look at the name itself.
Yes.
Is he as bad as rambunctious as you portray him?
Yes. I think he's got a bit of a mischievous streak in him that, yes, definitely is out to create havoc. So, yes, the story depicts very much what could possibly happen with him.
Well, why did you choose to write this? And in fact, I think you write most of your books in rhyme, don't you?
I do write them in rhyme, and I just, I love, well, it's a challenge, to be honest. A lot of people tell me all the time how much they just love to write a children's book, and which is great, but I do think adding rhyme to it creates, it's just a little bit more of entertainment for children. My focus when I write anything is really just about how the kids will perceive it, and quite often I'll put a repetitive line in the story, just to get them engaged as well, and so yeah, I do. But it's important when you're writing in rhyme not just to find a word that rhymes and then try and sort of mash it all together. I do work hard to try and actually get a rhythm and a flow to it as well. So, and it's quite a challenge when you've got sort of 4 lines on a page to actually produce enough storyline in those 4 lines, to make it work.
But it's a family affair, isn't it? Because your husband, Bryce, he provides the beautiful illustrations.
Yes. Bryce works at Hillsville Sanctuary during the day, and he illustrates when I nag him enough to do so. Yes, a lot of it is a collaboration. We do have our different ideas on how the illustrations are going to be produced. Me being a bit of a control freak, I often just say, "Look, can you draw this?" And so that's, a lot of people think it's very harmonious and very artistic. And the fact is, I'm just telling him, no, please just draw what I ask you to draw.
Quite right too.
Well, I think also because when you actually write a story and you do have so few words in a story, in a children's book, you need the illustrations to sometimes capture part of that story as well. So it's important that you are carrying the message through the writing into the illustrations.
Is Aloysius aimed at a particular age group?
Oh, look, all our other books are on the Victorian Premier's reading list for grades 3 and 4, but that's sort of when they're reading to themselves. I would say this is any age really, from 2 up to 7 sort of thing. I think that's pretty appropriate. It's always, because obviously people read stories to a child and then they learn to read and read themselves. Yeah. So, yeah.
The inspiring thing about this is that the profits from the sales of your Aloysius book go to assist research into paediatric brain cancer, I think.
Yes, that's right. We've chosen 2 charities. A very good friend of mine is a palliative care nurse in Geelong, and she's on the board of Peace of Mind Foundation. They support families with brain cancer. And the other one is RCD, which is Robert Connor's Dawes Foundation, and they specialise in raising money for paediatric brain cancer. Brain cancer is such a shocking cancer. It just hasn't really advanced too much in 30 years in the prognosis. And, it was always easy to find. It was always going to be a charity involved with children, and, I couldn't think of anything more deserving than one that's, focusing on cancer in children.
It was a decision that you made, no doubt, motivated by your own understanding of the impact of cancer.
Well, I do have an understanding of that. It's, it's devastating to be diagnosed with cancer, and then to be further diagnosed with incurable cancer is quite unbelievable. And I just, to be a child and have to go through that is just, I can't even believe it. I mean, I feel, I'm in my 50s and I'm fortunate to have had a fantastic life so far, and I'm doing okay. I'm still in treatment, and but I'm still, kicking along. But yeah, so there's so many children that just don't have an opportunity, and so.
Jo, it's one thing to talk about Aloysius and the Chateau de LaLande. It's another thing to get your hands on that beautiful book. How do we do that?
Well, it's being sold. It's being sold through both the charities, so Peace of Mind Foundation and RCD Foundation. They're selling it, and 100% profits or proceeds are going to them, and then also through our website, which is rothwellpublishing.com. And yeah, we'd love to post you out a copy, and all the profits are going to this to those charities.
That's great.
So far, we've had it on sale since December, and so far we've raised about $3,500.
That's great.
Which is good. I mean, I'd love it to go a lot further. So yeah, it'd be great to.
Jo, while browsing your website, I came across a marvellous cartoon. It was associated with your blog, which I think neatly sums up your philosophy of life. So, if I may, I'd like to end by quoting that cartoon. It's a Peanuts cartoon.
Oh, yes.
Charlie Brown says to Snoopy, "We only live once." Well, Snoopy replies, "Wrong. We only die once. We live every day." That's great, isn't it?
That's right. Yes, it is.
All right, Jo Rothwell of Rothwell Publishing, and of course Aloysius the Ram at Chateau de LaLande. I thank you for your time, and I wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much.